The human specimen in the museum where I work started showing signs of livor mortis. My coworkers didn't seem to care, but the hair on my arms stood straight up. Because I had already swapped that human specimen with a model I bought on eBay. My name is Cole. I'm 28, and I'm a security guard at the Y-Town Museum. When I was born, the blind fortune teller in my village said I was born with a strong body but weak wealth, cursed with a hard fate that would bring misfortune to my parents and family. When I was 5, my home was hit by a flood, and I lost my parents. My grandparents, who took me in, passed away one after the other when I was 8 or 9. My aunt and uncle had a hard time raising me after that. But my uncle died in a car crash the year I turned 16. I couldn't bear to be a burden on my simple, quiet aunt any longer. After I bombed my college entrance exams, I entered the workforce as soon as I could. I've had a lot of jobs. I've hauled cement, tied rebar, sold houses, delivered food, worked as a cook, and run an online store. I was even tricked by someone from my hometown into a pyramid scheme for 2 months. And my poorest, I lived in a basement that cost $200 a month and ate nothing but steamed buns and instant noodles for a week straight. Finally, at 23, I saved up enough to start a business. I partnered with a friend to open a small import-export company and finally made my first real money. But the good times didn't last. The pandemic, a warehouse fire, and my partner backing out completely shattered our company's cash flow. I sold my car and my apartment to cover the cost of the goods. My credit was shot. After struggling for 10 years, I was back to having nothing. I figured maybe I was just born unlucky and no amount of effort would ever change that. I gave up. I came to the Y-Town Natural History Museum to work as a security guard for $5,000 a month. I started my retirement life 30 years early. And yet, when it rains, it pours. A month ago, my aunt, her hair already white with worry, had a sudden heart attack. She needed immediate bypass surgery, and the medical bills were $150,000. Just as I was tearing my hair out trying to raise the money, a strange opportunity appeared. One day, after finishing my night shift, I was heading home after handing things over to the day shift guys. As I turned into a small alley behind the museum, a middle-aged man in a hoodie stopped me. He said he wanted to make a deal. If I stole one of the human specimens from a museum and sold it to them, they'd give me a $100,000 commission. The Y-Town Museum is an old-fashioned place in the southwest part of the city, with architecture and exhibits straight out of the early 2000s. One of its long-running exhibits, for 20 years now, is the Human Specimen Exhibition. The job itself wasn't that hard. The museum has 6 security guards in total, with 2 people per night shift. My partner, Lucas, has a bad limp and is close to retirement age. So at night, he usually sleeps in the break room while I watch the monitors in the security office. All I had to do was turn off the cameras in the exhibition area during my shift, and I could sneak the specimen out without anyone knowing. The museum replaces the specimens every 3 years. This was the 3rd year for the current batch. Due to poor maintenance, they already looked pretty gruesome, and few visitors ever got close enough for a good look. The guy had prepared a highly realistic model to use as a replacement. It would easily pass for the real thing. I didn't know why they wanted to buy a specimen that was about to be replaced anyway, but I did know that the $100,000 was the only thing that could save my aunt's life. I couldn't refuse. So, on a night 2 weeks ago, I stole the specimen from the center of the exhibit and sold it. Maybe it was just my nerves, but after that, I always felt like a pair of eyes was watching me from the shadows. Just as I was starting to forget about the whole thing, something happened. Today, while patrolling the exhibition hall, my coworker, Joe, said he smelled a faint, foul odor. The source of the smell was the very specimen in the middle that I had replaced. Joe was about to walk over to get a closer look. My heart leaped into my throat. Just then, Lucas came over, limping. "That's normal," he said. "They always start to stink in the 3rd year." He glanced at my pale face and pointed at me, laughing. "You're such a chicken. You see these things every day. What are you still afraid of?" Seeing that Lucas and Joe hadn't noticed anything unusual, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. But just as they turned to go to the next exhibition area, I saw it. The human specimen had distinct spots of livor mortis on it. I clearly remembered the model I put in its place didn't have those marks. Could it be? The person didn't put a model in there? A cold sweat instantly soaked my back. To avoid arousing suspicion, I forced myself to suppress the terror rising in my heart. I barely made it through the day until nightfall. I sat in the security office. Lucas, as usual, was resting in the break room. I figured I'd wait until after midnight, then go check on the exhibit myself. The night was long, so I opened up a streaming app to kill some time. As soon as I opened it, I saw a young Taoist priest sitting in front of the camera. He was wearing traditional robes, a square cap, and had two long, thin whiskers, looking the picture of righteousness. His account name was Master M, a pretty impressive title. I was about to swipe past when I saw the famous influencer Scarface, who had 1 million followers, send Master M 3 carnivals, a high-value gift. This Scarface was a well-known streamer who debunked superstitions. Yet here he was, showering a Taoist priest with praise. I couldn't help but feel a little curious. Just then, the priest spoke. "Thank you all for your support. We just passed 50,000 followers. As is tradition, I will do one free, random connection as a bonus." Thinking about that strange specimen in the exhibition hall, I clicked the request to connect, as if guided by some unseen force. Maybe it was because we were in the same city, or maybe I just have some unexplainable connection to the supernatural. Master M actually connected with me. Afraid of being recognized by someone I knew, I used an effect to cover my face. Master M said if I didn't want to show my face, a palm reading would work too. At his word, I pointed the camera at my palm. He studied my palm carefully and said, "A broken fate line and a cross pattern. Patron, I'm afraid you've had a difficult life since childhood, with very few close relatives." I gave a bitter laugh. He was right. Whether it was my face or my palm, I was destined to be alone. Then, the priest paused and said, "Strange, very strange. You were originally just born under a lonely star. So why is there an omen of a great disaster being drawn to you?" He pinched his fingers together, making calculations, and his voice turned serious. "You become entangled in some heavy karma. If you don't break this connection, you're headed for major trouble. Have you encountered anything strange recently?" Because of what the blind fortune teller had told me, I've always been a bit of a believer in fate and fortune. I took a deep breath, and leaving out some of the details, I told Master M and the entire stream about the human specimen. I work in a museum. Half a month ago, one of the human specimens in our collection was accidentally damaged, so I had to replace it with a realistic model I bought from an online shop. But recently, I noticed that the model has started to develop livor mortis. The live chat was scrolling nonstop. OMG, this sounds like the plot of a horror novel. Don't tell me this is another one of Master M's paid actors. Did the model come to life? You're on a streaming app, sharing a story I just made up. I looked at the chat and laughed bitterly. If this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe it either. But Master M listened very carefully and asked, "Was the museum built on cursed ground?" I nodded vigorously. The museum used to be an execution ground for death row inmates. I heard that even before that, it was a mass grave. Master M pondered this. Then that's it. Such a place of misfortune is the perfect ground for nurturing a corpse. I gasped. Nurturing a corpse? Master M nodded. If I'm not mistaken, someone is using your museum to raise a zombie. Corpse nurturers usually choose mountains or Great Lakes as their sites, since the probability of producing a malevolent spirit is high. But the negative energy in those natural places isn't very concentrated, so raising a zombie takes a long, slow process, 3 to 5 years at the shortest, sometimes over a decade. It can't be rushed. But your museum, being both an execution ground and a mass grave, is filled with resentment that hasn't dispersed. If someone were to set up a ritual formation using the artifacts in the museum, it would be an absolutely perfect place for raising a zombie. The stream's chat never stopped. Awesome. Are we going to see a real live zombie with Master M? I admit I'm scared. I'm logging off. Help. An execution ground plus a mass grave. I'm never going to a museum again. You don't need to worry too much. Even with such strong negative energy, raising a zombie isn't easy. There are different types of zombie. Black, white, hairy, flying, hidden, and incorruptible bone. A newly formed white zombie will show the bluish-purple marks you mentioned, which you thought were livor mortis. At this stage, the zombie's body is merely preserved from decay and isn't very dangerous. You can neutralize it by moving the white zombie out of the museum with someone else during the midday sun. The chat filled up with a wave of learn something new and awesome comments. Hearing the Taoist master's words, my anxious heart finally settled down a bit. Just as I was about to thank him, I glanced up at the security monitors. Through the small screen, I saw it. The zombie moved. I couldn't help but curse. Master, it moved. The zombie moved. Are you at the museum right now? Yes, I'm on a night shift in the security office. Hearing this, Master M's expression changed. He quickly pinched his fingers together, calculating. Today is the 17th of the lunar month, the day of the Crimson Sparrow under a double morning sign, and tonight is a 5-planet alignment. This is bad. The reanimation is going to happen tonight. Quick, let me see the monitor. I couldn't worry about leaking my real information anymore. If what Master M said was true and a reanimation was happening, I, the closest living person to the exhibit, was probably going to die here. I pulled up the panoramic view of the exhibition hall on the monitor and quickly flipped my phone camera around to face it. In the exhibit, the zombie was shaking violently inside its transparent display case. Before the eyes of thousands of viewers in the live stream, cracks began to appear on the bulletproof glass. Then, the zombie stepped out of the display frame and onto the exhibition floor. It was getting out. This is bad. The zombie has already become a hairy zombie. The chat erupted in frantic screams. So thrilling. Ah! Someone tell me this isn't real. Call the police. The zombie seemed to have instantly sprouted coarse black hair. It twisted its head, as if sensing a direction. Master M said urgently, "Zombie, locate people by their breath. Hold your breath and stay silent. Get out of there now." I clapped one hand over my mouth and nose while frantically mashing my phone's volume button with the other. I was planning to make a run for it while the zombie was still waking up. But then I saw the zombie, its body stiff, hopping in a bizarre manner toward the break room. Oh no, Lucas! In a split second, a million thoughts flashed through my mind. I knew that if I ran out of the museum right now, I could save my own life. But this whole zombie business was my fault because I sold the specimen. I couldn't just leave the innocent Lucas behind and run away. I gritted my teeth, grabbed one of our patrol stun batons, and sprinted toward the break room. By the time I got there, I saw the hairy zombie, its head covered in inch-long black fur, revealing a pair of sharp fangs as it was about to bite Lucas, who was lying on the bed. I kicked the hairy monster as hard as I could, but it felt like kicking an iron plate. The zombie stumbled sideways from my kick, then immediately turned its head and lunged at me, claws outstretched. I frantically swung the stun baton at it. The zombie crackled and sparked, convulsing violently before being thrown back a few feet. I grabbed the terrified Lucas and ran for the door. But it was clear the stun baton wasn't powerful enough to stop this thing. It recovered in a moment and lunged at us again with its arms outstretched. As we scrambled away, I remembered Master M's advice to hold your breath and stay quiet. I quickly signaled for Lucas to cover his mouth and nose with me, and we slowed our pace, inching toward the door. The zombie waved its stiff arms around wildly, and for a moment, it really couldn't pinpoint our location. However, holding our breath wasn't a long-term solution. The break room was a large space used by all 6 of us. Before we could even escape, Lucas couldn't hold on any longer and took 2 huge gasps of air. The hairy zombie seemed to receive a signal instantly and flew at him. I quickly used the stun baton to hold it back. Relying on the baton, I told Lucas to run to the main hall of the museum and pull the alarm. The alarm in the main hall was directly connected to the district police department. I had to take responsibility for my actions. At this point, I couldn't worry about the consequences of calling the police. This zombie had clearly become a serious threat. It seemed only armed force could stop it now. Before I could even hear the alarm, I noticed that the long black hair on the zombie was starting to fall off, and it was becoming less afraid of my stun baton. The zombie swatted the baton away with one claw and slammed me to the ground. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if my organs had been rearranged. A metallic taste filled my throat. I must have broken a few ribs. The hairy zombie pinned me down, opening its gaping, bloody mouth over my face. Drops of sticky fluid fell onto my face, and the intense stench of rot nearly made me suffocate. Its skin was as hard as steel, its fangs sharp. I couldn't move a muscle. I could only watch as it lunged for my neck. I'm going to die. The pain I expected never came. As a shower of white, granular particles fell from above, the hairy zombie started to smoke. It writhed in agony and momentarily released its grip on me. It was true. Zombies are really afraid of glutinous rice. I looked up and saw Master M, holding a peachwood sword in one hand and a cloth bag in the other, standing silhouetted against the light of the doorway. Master, I almost burst into tears on the spot. Who says heroes only stand in the light? At this moment, Master M, you were my savior. I ignored the searing pain and rolled out from under the zombie to his side. Master M then pulled out a black donkey hoof, black dog's blood, cinnabar, and other items from his bag, throwing them all at the zombie. The hairy zombie let out a continuous series of shrieks, a sound like a blade scraping across a chalkboard, high-pitched and sharp. Master M took the opportunity to help me up and quickly moved me out of the break room. At the same time, he slammed the iron gate outside the room shut. The hairy zombie was clearly enraged. It didn't stay quiet for long and soon began to violently ram its body against the iron gate. The gate was old and rusty, and it probably wouldn't hold for long. Master M helped me sit down against a wall and comforted me. Don't panic. My sect has ancestral talismans for immobilizing corpses. I breathed a sigh of relief, waiting for him to pull out a magic talisman and defeat the monster in one move. I watched as he pulled a sheet of yellow paper from his sleeve, then took out a brush dipped in cinnabar. Then, muttering incantations, he began to draw a talisman right then and there. What? I was stunned. Was there really a Taoist priest who came to catch a ghost and started drawing talismans on the spot? On one side, the zombie was banging against the iron gate. On the other, the priest was murmuring incantations. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a mental breakdown. With a loud bang, the iron gate flew off its hinges and the hairy zombie lunged, knocking me to the ground. At the same time, Master M finally finished his brushstroke. With a flick of his wrist, he slapped the freshly drawn talisman onto the zombie's forehead. The creature's attempt to bite me immediately slowed. Then I heard Master M chant an incantation, and the zombie finally stopped moving altogether. Having narrowly escaped the zombie's jaws, I leaned against the wall, panting heavily. Besides the pain, I felt waves of cold washing over me. You've been infected with corpse venom. If you don't get out soon, you'll lose this arm, Master M said, pulling a handful of glutinous rice from his bag and handing it to me. Press the rice onto the wound until the blood that comes out turns red. Only then did I notice that my left arm had been scratched several times by the zombie's nails and was now oozing black blood. I sincerely thanked Master M for saving my life. He waved his hand. Just call me Mark. Subduing demons and defending the righteous path is my duty. Sorry if I scared you just now. Don't mind me. Zombies are extremely rare these days, so I didn't have any talismans prepared. By the way, why didn't you just run earlier? Luckily, a fan recognized this as the Y-Town Museum, so I was able to use my 1,000-mile step to get here. At that moment, I remembered Lucas, the man I was trying to save. He hadn't pulled the alarm after all this time. Could he have been caught by the zombie and infected with the venom too? I quickly begged Mark to help me check on Lucas. Mark searched the entire museum but couldn't find any trace of him. Oh well, I figured Lucas must have been terrified and just ran straight out of the museum. It was a blessing that my bad luck hadn't gotten him killed. Mark crouched down beside the zombie, examining it closely. He saw that some of the black hair had already fallen off, revealing bluish-purple skin underneath. He remarked with surprise, "The negative energy in this place is thick, but this zombie only managed to become a hairy zombie by harnessing the power of the 5-planet alignment. How could it start losing its hair so quickly?" Its refinement speed is advancing by leaps and bounds. This is truly strange. After I told Mark my theory about the zombie's rapid evolution being related to the stun baton shocks, it could be tempered by lightning? Could this be a life-bound zombie refined by the ancient Giyao clan? He exclaimed, startled. Master, are you talking about the Giyao clan that vanished over 30 years ago? I asked, thinking of the Giyao artifacts in the museum's collection. The Giyao were a mysterious people who originally lived deep in the high mountain forest southwest of Y-Town. They lived off the land, were self-sufficient, and rarely interacted with the outside world. The men hunted and farmed. The women wove cloth and cooked. The children in the clan didn't go to outside schools, and when people got sick, they were treated by the village shaman. Only a few of the able-bodied young men would occasionally leave the mountains to sell game and herbs for daily necessities. Some clan members never left the mountains their entire lives. The clan chief would periodically go into town to communicate with the local government. But one day in the late 1980s, no one knows the exact date, the Giyao clan suddenly vanished. It wasn't until the fourth national census, when the statistics department tried to contact the chief, that people realized it had been a long time since any men dressed as Giyao had been seen selling goods in the streets, and the chief hadn't been to the government offices in ages. The mountains were shrouded in a thick miasma, making it extremely difficult for outsiders to enter without a Giyao guide. Given the special circumstances, the county government sent a team of several dozen armed investigators into the mountains to find them. The team wandered in the mountains for days before finally finding the place. It was a village large enough to house several hundred people, but the entire village was overgrown with weeds, and the house beams were covered in cobwebs. If it weren't for the fact that the houses were fully stocked with daily necessities, the investigators would have thought the entire Giyao clan had simply moved away. With no other leads, the team could only take some of the Giyao utensils from the houses and return to report their findings. Later, many hikers tried to venture into the Giyao village to explore, but after several of them went missing, the government forcibly closed off the mountain trail. And just like that, for over 30 years, there was no more news of the Giyao people in Y-Town. That's the one, the legendary Giyao clan, Mark said with a long sigh. Good thing I'm poor. If I had used the 5 Thunder Charm just now and summoned heavenly lightning, I probably would have helped it ascend directly into a flying zombie. That would have been a huge problem. Hearing his words, although I didn't understand what being rich or poor had to do with casting spells, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. So much had happened tonight. I was afraid of any more complications. Master M, let's get out of here quickly. Leave? I'm afraid someone won't let us leave so easily. Mark's gaze went past me, toward the darkness outside the door. A man in a black hoodie and fitted clothing appeared in the doorway. The little Taoist from Maoshan is sharp, just as I'd expect. That raspy voice was unmistakably Henry, the man I made the deal with. Mark stared at the man and asked, "Are you a descendant of the Giyao clan?" "I ain't no damn Giyao." I've been guarding this crappy town for 2 whole years, waiting for this day of the 5-planet alignment. Since you've already seen the hairy zombie I worked so hard to create, I can't just let you leave. Hearing this, Mark pushed me behind him and summoned a long sword out of thin air. He reassured me, "Don't be afraid. Besides exorcism and fortune-telling, my sect also trains in physical arts and swordsmanship." I felt a little more at ease, thinking that with the master's agile skills, dealing with this Henry fellow should be no problem. Until the man pulled out a matchlock rifle. "I wonder, is your sword faster or is my gun faster?" This kind of rifle was quite common when I was a kid. Its power was comparable to a modern firearm, and it was extremely potent at close range. It's just that they're strictly controlled now. The hunters in the countryside have either surrendered them or had them destroyed. Mark and I exchanged a look. We were both speechless. This was just too surreal. Silence was the guest of honor at the museum tonight. Under the threat of the matchlock rifle, Mark tossed his sword and his bag of tricks to the side. Perhaps seeing that I was covered in blood from the zombie's attack and could barely stand, posing little threat, the man ordered me to tie Mark's hands behind his back with duct tape. Still not satisfied, he added, "Tape that Taoist bastard's mouth shut too, so he doesn't start mumbling any of his hocus pocus and messing things up." Next, Henry approached the zombie. Looking at the creature, half of its black fur already gone, he smiled with satisfaction. "It's done, it's done." He ripped off Mark's special talisman, and the subdued zombie immediately started thrashing about again. I watched as Henry took out a dark golden bell and began to shake it rhythmically. The hairy zombie instantly became docile, following behind the man step by step. I was dumbfounded. Could this be the legendary art of corpse herding? Afterward, he led the zombie and escorted Mark and me to the security office. He forced me to turn off all the cameras in the museum and delete all of tonight's surveillance footage. Henry's phone rang at that moment. His voice instantly became respectful and sycophantic. "Hall Master, I have fulfilled my mission. I've finally created the hairy zombie, and it's a high-grade one. It should break through to a flying zombie soon. Rest assured, I will bring the hairy zombie back to the mountain tonight. You're too kind. Please put in a good word for me with the Mountain Lord. Nothing went wrong. I'll clean everything up." Clean everything up? I looked at the man's rifle and the terrifying zombie beside him. My heart went cold. It seemed I wouldn't be leaving here alive tonight. Henry let out a sinister laugh. "Kid, don't blame me. Blame your own bad luck." Perhaps worried that the gunshot would be too loud, Henry didn't use the rifle to silence us. Instead, he started shaking the bell faster while chanting an incantation. With the sound of the bell and the chant, the hairy zombie opened its bloody maw, extended 10 long, blackish-green nails, and lunged at me and Mark. Maybe because I had teetered on the brink of death so many times tonight, in that moment, a ridiculous thought popped into my head. 2 men killed by an unknown creature in the middle of the night. I wonder how the police will explain this case tomorrow. Just then, a clap of thunder suddenly erupted from the clear sky. An incredibly thick bolt of purple lightning snaked in through the window and struck the hairy zombie directly. The zombie was enveloped by the lightning, letting out terrifying screams. Its body trembled violently, its legs stomping the ground in agony. By the time the purple electricity dissipated, the zombie's inch-long black hair had all fallen to the floor, and its dark purple skin had been tempered by the lightning to the hardness of steel. It had stomped several long cracks into the marble floor. Clearly, it had evolved again. Henry looked at the hairy zombie, or perhaps now it should be called a flying zombie, and let out a crazed laugh. "Ha ha! The heavens have not failed me. The heavens have not failed me. I actually created a life-bound flying zombie. We'll see who in the West Hall dares to look down on me now." However, in the next second, his voice cut off abruptly. The flying zombie transformed into a black shadow and shot toward the man, its 10 dark claws plunging straight into his chest. Henry, a man who lived on the edge, was quick-witted. He endured the pain and fired several shots at the zombie. The gunshots echoed through the museum. The zombie was knocked back a few steps by the bullets, but in an instant, it recovered and lunged at Henry again. Then, Henry let out a blood-curdling scream and fell, his fate unknown. Seizing the opportunity, I gritted my teeth and, using all my strength, forced my battered body to move as fast as it could to untie Mark. However, as I moved, the zombie's attention shifted to us. Looking at the enraged, blackened face of the flying zombie, I knew there was no escaping our doom today. I glanced at the equally unarmed Mark. With his skills, escaping should be no problem. "Master, you should run. Don't worry about me." Mark pulled me behind him, extended his right hand, and chanted an incantation, shouting, "Sword, come to me." A brilliant, flowing sword flew from a distance. Mark wielded the sword, his movements like the wind. His swordsmanship was sharp and fierce as he engaged the zombie in battle. His figure was erratic, sometimes appearing behind the zombie, sometimes in front, the light of his sword flashing, forcing the creature back step by step. However, the zombie seemed unfazed by Mark's attacks. Each blow it took only seemed to make it stronger. Mark took a deep breath. Many of my techniques have a lightning attribute. If this drags on, it will be even harder to escape. With that, he gritted his teeth, pulled a few copper coins from his chest, and began to chant. The coins circled the zombie, then formed a Bagua trigram. The zombie was trapped within the formation, roaring and spinning. This Bagua formation can only hold it for a moment. "Let's go," Mark said, grabbing me, preparing to fly away on his sword. But at that moment, the man who had been lying on the floor suddenly woke up. He grabbed Mark's leg and begged, "Master, save me. Save me." Mark looked at the crumbling formation, said no more, and with one hand holding me and the other grabbing the man, he flew on his sword toward the museum's main entrance, following my directions. However, since the zombie had already evolved into a flying zombie, it naturally had the ability to fly. It broke the formation with brute force and came straight after us. The zombie's flight speed was incredibly fast, its form almost a blur, carrying with it a powerful pressure that made one's heart palpitate for no reason. The three of us circled the main hall twice but couldn't find an exit. What the hell? I'm a security guard here, and I can't even find the museum's door. Mark had no choice but to fly us around the pillars in the main hall in sharp turns, dodging the zombie's attacks. Fortunately, the zombie hadn't developed much intelligence. It only knew how to charge head-on, crashing into the display cases in the hall with loud bangs, shattering numerous artifacts and exhibits. At that moment, an idea struck me. I remembered last month's joint exhibition with the neighboring city's ecological zoo, where a large number of black bears and tigers were displayed in the museum. The cages from that exhibit were now sitting idle in the museum's basement. I quickly explained my idea to Mark, and he immediately flew us down to the basement. The cage, unassuming in the dark basement, was specially made of cast refined iron and could withstand several tons of external force. Mark flew us quickly around the cage, his eyes sharp, fixed on it. After a few laps, he caught the flying zombie off guard and swiftly opened the cage door. The move was so agile it was almost as fast as our flight. Next, Mark cleverly changed direction, feigning a move to fly into the cage. The flying zombie fell for the trick, rushing eagerly toward the cage. Just as it was about to enter, Mark suddenly spun around, and I seized the moment to slam the iron door of the cage shut. However, at that very instant, the long-dormant flying zombie suddenly lashed out. The flying zombie's hand shot out through the bars, grabbing me as I stood close to the cage. The next second, I was face to face with the flying zombie, so close I could see its blackened face and clouded eyes. Mark turned back to save me, striking the zombie with all his might. The flying zombie trembled, and I saw it holding a round object in its almost completely decayed mouth. Then, I felt a cold sensation in my throat. That foul-smelling thing entered my mouth, slid down my esophagus directly into my stomach, and an overwhelming wave of nausea enveloped me. Then, the flying zombie released me. Afterward, Mark quickly produced a talisman, bit his own finger, and dripped fresh blood onto the yellow paper. As the blood seeped in, the talisman began to glow faintly. Next, Mark rapidly drew a complex charm. The charm floated in the air, slowly approaching the cage. As soon as the charm touched the cage, the previously shaking structure suddenly became more solid. An invisible energy was released from the charm, tightly securing the cage. The flying zombie was completely trapped. Having swallowed such a disgusting thing, I had no idea if my lonely, cursed life could be saved. Hearing me retch repeatedly, Mark hurried over to check on me. When he learned that I had swallowed something from the flying zombie's mouth, his expression turned grim. Seeing that I didn't seem to be in too much distress, Mark looked around and suddenly said in a loud voice, "Senior, I know you are here. Would you be willing to show yourself?" "Who are you talking to?" I asked, confused. He gently straightened his Taoist robes and explained, "We couldn't find the exit earlier because someone had set up a barrier here." "Was it you?" I looked suspiciously at Henry. He shook his head frantically in denial. Mark said, "Even I cannot easily break this barrier. It was definitely not set by an ordinary corpse herder. So, someone else is controlling the zombie?" I was floored. Is this ever going to end? "Senior, would you be willing to show yourself?" Mark asked again in a loud voice. His voice echoed in the empty basement. The three of us waited quietly, but there was no response from our surroundings. Just as I was beginning to doubt, a figure suddenly emerged from a corner. Slowly, limping, it walked toward us. That familiar gait. My mouth moved faster than my brain, and I cried out a name I had never suspected in disbelief. Lucas. As soon as Lucas appeared, the zombie stopped roaring. His expression was no different from usual. He handed me a canister of powder. "Cole, put this on your scratches." I glanced at Mark. Seeing that he didn't object, I poured the powder onto the wounds from the zombie's claws. As soon as the white powder touched the wounds, a cool sensation spread through them, and the pain instantly lessened by more than half. Then, I watched as Lucas walked straight to Henry, grabbed him fiercely by the neck, and said, "Who taught you how to refine a life-bound zombie?" Henry frantically looked to Mark for help. Seeing that Mark made no move, he struggled for a moment before confessing, I'll talk. It was Black Mountain Mal. I am the 10th generation corpse herder. 2 years ago, I was hired by the West Hall of Black Mountain Mal to come to Y-Town and refine a life-bound flying zombie. Where did this zombie come from? All the zombie were distributed to us by the Hall Master. He also assigned us our own locations for corpse nurturing, all of them top-tier sites. Once we succeed in creating a hairy zombie, we can return to the Hall to receive $1 million reward. Those fortunate enough to create a flying zombie can be promoted to Deputy Hall Master with a reward of $5 million. Hearing this, I secretly clicked my tongue. Wow, this big guy in the cage is actually worth $5 million. Lucas continued to ask, how many of these zombies are there in total? As far as I know, there should be 7. The West Hall has recruited a total of 7 corpse herding teams. After Henry had confessed everything, Lucas fed him a pill before letting him go. Without Lucas's antidote, Henry's insides would be torn to shreds in 7 days. At this point, Mark also stepped forward. I am Mark, a disciple of the 78th generation. May I ask if Senior is a descendant of the ancient Giyao clan? It's rare that someone still recognizes us Giyao. I have read my master's notes in my sex archives. A life-bound zombie of the Giyao clan tempered by lightning is a once-in-a-century occurrence. Mark continued. Senior, what exactly is the story behind today's events? How did this zombie fall into the hands of this corpse herder? Lucas fell silent for a moment before speaking slowly. 36 years ago, due to a moment of carelessness, I brought an evil man back to my clan, leading to a catastrophe that wiped us out. I have searched for my enemy for many years without success and was prepared to die with this regret. This day of the 5-plan alignment was my last chance. I never expected someone would deliver my clan's ancestral corpse right to my doorstep. He must be hiding in Black Mountain Mal. The sorrow and hatred in my master's eyes were almost tangible. It's either him or me. Lucas, actually this zombie was Lucas had always looked out for me, and I couldn't help but confess. Lucas waved his hand, cutting me off. I know. I sensed its presence the moment you brought it into the museum. It's the heart that matters, not the action. I know you are loyal and righteous, and you did it all for your aunt. Today, you could have just run away, but you stayed behind and risked your life to save me. That shows your heart is in the right place. Suddenly, my stomach started churning violently. Waves of excruciating pain washed over me, one after another, like a relentless tide. Mark seemed to be talking to me from nearby. His voice swirled in my ears, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. Lucas seemed to be feeding me something. My vision swam with blacks, greens, and yellows, and the whole world felt distorted. And yet, somehow, I didn't pass out from the pain. After what felt like an eternity, I finally regained my senses. I've never had a baby, but I think the pain might have been comparable to childbirth. Lucas frowned, pointing at me and scolding, "You fool! How dare you swallow a flying zombie's blood core? If I didn't have soul binding grass with me, you would have died here today." Lucas told me that swallowing the blood core of a flying zombie forms a blood pact with a life-bound creature. Forming a blood pact with a zombie makes it recognize you as its master, something countless corpse nurturers dream of. But for an ordinary person like me, who has never had any contact with corpse nurturing and was completely unprepared, Swallowing the blood core was like rolling around on a bed of knives. Kid, let me tell you the truth. You have a flaw in your destiny, and you weren't meant to live past 35. Although corpse nurturing is a dark art, my clan's life-bound zombie can gather positive energy and extend one's lifespan. Now that you've formed a blood pact with this life-bound flying zombie, why don't you become my disciple? That way, the legacy of my Gyao clan won't be completely lost. Before I could even react, Mark shot me a look, signaling for me to accept. I gave a bitter laugh. It seemed he had also seen that I wouldn't live past 35. He just hadn't wanted to say it directly before. If my fate was already sealed, then I would have to carve out a new path for myself. Disciple obeys master's command. I gritted my teeth and knelt down to formally become his student. At that moment, I had no idea that this one act of kneeling would completely change the course of my life. Wee woo, wee woo. The sound of police sirens grew closer. It seemed Henry's gunshots from earlier had alerted the police. I started all of this today, and I will bear all the consequences, Lucas said, pointing to the cage and addressing Mark. Master Taoist, please undo the spell on the cage as quickly as possible and take the flying zombie and Cole with you first. Master, half of the museum's main hall is destroyed. How can you bear the consequences? I'll stay with you, I said. I didn't want to leave my master here alone. Since I brought the zombie in, I had to take half the responsibility. Don't worry, it's just half an exhibition hall. Your master can afford it, my master chuckled. Most of the land in Y-Town's Green Garden New District belongs to my family. Mark and I exchanged a look, our jaws nearly hitting the floor. What kind of powerful person had I accidentally allied myself with? Senior, the police have already cordoned off the scene. If this flying zombie appears, it will cause a panic, Mark said, rubbing his chin. I have a solution, but I wonder if you would be willing to let a special association intervene in this matter. After getting an affirmative answer from my master, Mark stepped aside to make a phone call. I could faintly hear him explaining the situation and mentioning words like compensation at market value, confidentiality, and reporting. Not long after he hung up, we heard the police cars drive away on their own. So, there was official backing for these kinds of folk activities. I suddenly felt like my future was bright and sunny. Finally, the four of us and one zombie walked out of the museum. The flying zombie was now carrying Henry and standing quietly to the side, as docile as a new bride, which I found amazing. As we parted ways, Mark spoke to my master with great solemnity. To be honest, Senior, this Black Mountain was founded in Southeast Asia by a trader from my sect, Calvin. It specializes in black magic to profit from evil deeds. The power of Black Mountain Mao should not be underestimated. In just 30 years, it has become one of the 3 major black magic sects in Southeast Asia. Now, it is showing signs of spreading into the country, and the West Hall is the branch they've established here. Therefore, before you're absolutely certain, it would be best not to confront them directly. Defending the righteous path and expelling evil is the duty of a true sect. If you need anything, Senior, we can share information and will certainly do our best to help. With that, he also waved to me. Just as I thought he was about to fly away on his sword, he got into a rideshare. I spent too much today, gotta save some money. Remember to support my stream. At the time, I didn't understand. It was only after fighting alongside Mark many times that I figured it out. The sect has a secret technique that automatically converts money into spiritual merit. Every spell Mark cast was supported by cash. Other people cast spells with power Mark literally paid to win. The next day, I was lying in the VIP hospital bed my master had arranged for me, scrolling through a streaming app when I came across Mark's stream again. His follower count had actually broken 80,000 today, a whole 30,000 more than yesterday. The comment section was buzzing with discussions about what happened at the museum last night. Guys, the corpse nurturing museum from the stream last night seems to be the Y-Town Museum. I want to check it out today, and it's closed for renovations. The video that security guard posted is obviously fake. Do people really believe this? The Y-Town Museum really is closed. I heard it was struck by lightning yesterday, and some local philanthropists donated $20 million for renovations. Awesome. So he knew it was going to close and prepared script. He's really established his character now. Believe it or not, I believe it. Master M is my one and only connection to the mystical world. I smiled, followed Mark, and used the last of my savings to send him a carnival. Listening to Mark's spiel about thanking the patron, I grinned from ear to ear, a grin that made my broken ribs ache. I will never forget this life-saving grace. The road ahead is long. We will meet again. Epilogue. My twin sister and I were born at the turn of spring and summer. Her name was Spring, and I was Summer. We looked about 70% alike, but our personalities were completely different. She was gentle and quiet. I was wild and free. The Gyao clan has always been isolated from the world, rarely interacting with outsiders, but I always yearned for the world beyond the mountains. In 1987, when I turned 20, I secretly went down the mountain to experience the world. In a neighboring province, I met Tim, who was about my age. We traveled together, ate together, and quickly became close. During an accident, Tim was seriously injured while saving me, so I brought him back to my home to recover. Few outsiders ever set foot in the mountains, so the clan members were both warm and curious about Tim. The children loved to gather around him and listen to his stories of the outside world. Later, I noticed that Spring would blush whenever she saw him. With my encouragement, my father agreed to their marriage. Seeing that he was about to become my brother-in-law, I told him everything. Finally, after drinking too much one night, I accidentally revealed the clan's secret of the corpse Buddha. The Gyao clan's life-bound zombie is very different from ordinary ones. Each life-bound zombie is created using a secret method where the body of a Gyao person is sealed in a hanging coffin in a mountain cave. After absorbing the light of the sun and moon and the negative energy of the mountain for several decades, it is then moved to a specific corpse nurturing ground. It must experience one 5-planet alignment to break through to a flying zombie. And a 5-planet alignment only occurs 50 times every 1,000 years, with the longest interval being 77 years. The last one was in 1984, and the entire clan only managed to successfully create 3. Therefore, life-bound zombies are extremely rare. Once a life-bound zombie becomes a flying zombie, it can form a blood pact with its nurturer. Once it recognizes its master, if the master dies, the zombie perishes with them. There is no possibility of changing masters. According to clan legend, when a life-bound zombie reaches its final stage of refinement, it can evolve from an incorruptible bone into a corpse Buddha. A corpse Buddha not only possesses immense magical power, but is also a vessel for a spirit. Once a corpse Buddha is created, the cultivator can choose to possess it, thereby gaining immortality. Any clan member can practice creating a life-bound zombie, but the secret art of the corpse Buddha has been passed down from generation to generation only by the clan chief. And my father was the chief of the Gyao clan. I don't know if Tim had been plotting to get close to the Gyao clan from the beginning, or if he developed malicious intent after hearing about the corpse Buddha secret. On their wedding day, he suddenly struck, putting a large amount of hallucinogenic drugs into the clan's water source. That day, every man, woman, and child in the clan came to attend Spring's wedding feast, and they were all drugged and passed out in the ancestral hall halfway up the mountain. After forcing my father to reveal the method for creating the corpse Buddha by threatening the lives of the entire clan, he went back on his word, killed my father, and set the ancestral hall on fire. Under the influence of the drug, all the clan members were unconscious. Only Spring, who had a custom of not eating before her wedding and had only sipped a little water, woke up halfway through. She staggered to my side and pricked me awake with her hairpin. I tried to pull her out of the ancestral hall with me, but a burning beam fell and pinned her legs. I heard Father say the secret method is hidden at the bottom of the well. Get revenge, were her last words, spoken through bloody tears. I fought my way out of the ancestral hall, but Tim chased after me relentlessly, forcing me to the edge of a cliff. I had no choice but to jump. The fire burned for 2 whole days and nights, reducing the entire mountain to ashes. From then on, the Gyao clan vanished. After I fell off the cliff, I was saved by a farmer who was gathering herbs in the mountains. seeing that I had lost my memory and looked somewhat like his own son who had died in an accident 2 years prior. The farmer put away my Giyao clothes, intending for me to take his son's identity. From then on, I became his son. With a lame leg, I helped out on my adoptive father's herb farm. I never went out to work, nor did I get married or have children. Later, when the Green Garden New District was developed, my family's herb farm and mountain were all included in the land acquisition. The government compensated us with a large sum of money and a large piece of land. It wasn't until 9 years ago, when my adoptive father was seriously ill, that he confessed my true identity to me. The moment I saw those Giyao clothes, it was as if a dam broke in my mind and my memories came flooding back. After arranging my adoptive father's funeral, I returned to my Giyao homeland. Untouched by humans for nearly 30 years, the once familiar paths were now covered in waist-high weeds. I followed my memory to the dry well of our old house. The secret of the corpse Buddha was carved in the Giyao script on the well wall. When I reached the mountain caves, just as I expected, all the unevolved ancestral corpses that had been placed there had been moved by Tim. Without clan members to maintain the caves with the proper rituals, the negative energy here was no longer concentrated. It was no longer a prime location for nurturing corpses. The image of Spring's bloody, tear-stained face played over and over in my mind. I swore that I would find Tim and avenge my people. I traveled all over the country to every known corpse nurturing site, searching for years, but I found no news of my life-bound zombie. Later, disheartened, I returned to Y-Town and unexpectedly discovered that the museum had become a perfect corpse nurturing ground. So, I spread information about the museum's potential as a nurturing ground and the upcoming 5-planet alignment on the dark web for occultists and became a security guard of the museum. I waited for 4 long years. Half a month before the 5-planet alignment, someone moved an ancestral corpse into the museum in the middle of the night. I smiled in the duty office. Finally, my wait was over. Cole, who had done a bad thing to pay for his aunt's medical bills, was on edge for half a month. Actually, the first time I saw Cole, I noticed the misfortune in his fate. He wasn't destined for a long life, but he was open-minded, cheerful, and had a determined heart. It was a pity. The Giyao clan's techniques have a natural connection to our ancestral corpses. So, as soon as the corpse evolved into a hairy zombie, it received my guidance and came to the break room to find me. I never expected that Cole would actually come back to save me. I pretended to be attacked by the zombie, and he was willing to risk his life to save me. Perhaps because his astrological chart was purine, by a strange twist of fate, the flying zombie actually chose him. Oh well, maybe it's time for this old man to take on a disciple.